stings. It's just more stinging.
Like somebody's like scratching you. That's how I felt, like someone was just like scratching me over and over again.
And also it's filled in too. So, but it's good. I mean, it's there. I just tend to forget it's there.
Sweet. Okay. All right, guys. This is episode number
21.
I'm Nick. This is Lux Saigon episode with my friend Ryan.
Hi.
I haven't seen him since high school.
Yeah, it's been 2009.
Wow, 2009.
We're old.
09 so fine, right?
Yeah.
09 so fine. And which high school did we go to?
We went to Centreville High School.
Centreville High School. I went to Centreville Elementary, Liberty Middle School, and Centreville High School. So I was here like my entire...
Isn't that great? So I'm a military family, so I was born in England, and then I lived in Massachusetts where I went to preschool, and then I moved to Biloxi, Mississippi, where I was there for pre-K and kindergarten at a Catholic school. Then I moved to Guam, which I absolutely love.
I remember that. You mentioned
I always
that.
talked about it.
Yeah.
So I still talk about it. It's funny. For a while I was like obsessed, and then everyone's like, "Oh, ha ha ha, Guam boy." I'm just like, no. And then I stopped for a while because I'm embarrassed. But then now, like, I've really gotten into a lot of things and met a lot of people as an adult who are from there, and so it's really become a passion to go back and advocate and really support the island because it's a beautiful place. So that was sort of 2 great years. So after that, I was in northern Texas, Wichita Falls. Then I moved here to Centreville, and I went to Unionville Elementary School for 2 years, and then Liberty. For 2 years, that's where we met, probably Liberty. And then all 4 years at Centreville. Graduated, and then I went to the University of Virginia for undergrad. Graduated in 2013. And then for about a year...
What was your major?
I majored in Global Development Studies.
Cool.
So it looks at the relationship between the developed and developing world.
Cool.
So all those charities, it's just ensuring that that relationship is equitable and fair, and also it's not just you put money into a place, it's also investing in the region, and also making sure that those in the community have the say, because ultimately that works out better off. Amazing experience. So about a year, sort of floating around, and then I got into a work-study program called the Mount Batten Institute. I lived in London for 1 year while working at a bank, and then after I moved to Bangkok for my master's thesis, got an MBA, and then from there, a little bit of time figuring out what to do, and then I started my current career path, which is in association management. So, and I've been in membership ever since. So essentially, you have trade associations. Example, so maybe you're like a teacher, right? So there's a teacher trade association. We're organizations that help keep those together. So you might pay into us to... Well, the plane goes over. So after earning my MBA, I got into the trade association world. So trade associations essentially represent business groups. So for example, if you're a professional teacher, if you're a firefighter, or if you are also in maybe like metallurgy or banking, we represent that. It's not quite unions, but essentially professionals pay into it for further education, to attend expos, and also to just in general network. So it's like glorified networking. So I've been in membership over the 3 different roles I've had for almost, has it been 6? Yeah, 6 years. I've been 6 years in this industry. So previous industries I've represented include the audiovisual industry, banking, and currently pharmaceutical manufacturers. Yeah, it's been really neat. We can talk about it more.
Do you still travel a lot?
Not as much as I used to, but I sure did.
Like in
so
high school,
when we first met,
in the yearbook it said you went to...
So when we first met, so when we started out, I guess middle school, I had been to bear with me, United Kingdom, U.S., Australia, Canada, and then in 7th grade, so when I first met you, I'd been to 4 countries.
Yeah.
And then when I last saw you in high school, it was about 15 countries. Now I'm at 50.
50.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and next month I'm going to get my 51st and 52nd. So the plan is to fly to Qatar. So I'll be in Doha for a layover, and then I'll be in the Seychelles.
Nice. So when were you in Vietnam?
I was in Vietnam in 2015. I went July 4th intentionally. I went there on July 4th intentionally. And then I was in Ho Chi Minh City, but also visiting the District 1 Saigon. Saigon Ho Chi Minh City. So I was there for a weekend. It was border hop because when I was in Bangkok, we needed to leave the country just briefly.
To renew your visa.
Renew the visa, yeah. So that was the understanding. So I chose Vietnam as my second destination. I went to the Philippines previously. But so July 4th, I went July 4th, intentionally chose that day because I went to the, I believe it's called, I don't know if it's the American War Museum, the Peace Museum.
Right, yeah.
So I went to the Peace Museum.
I work near there, my office.
Oh, is that great?
Yeah. My office. This company whose name I won't say, but we call it DMZ. And if you work there, you know what I mean.
Yeah, so I went to the Peace Museum, and it was important I went there on July 4th, just because it provided good context as to what happened over there with what they call the American War, which is legitimately. It's a really eye-opening there. While I was there, I also went to the presidential house, and I went up Texo Tower. Yep. So it looks like a lotus. Yeah, so at the time it was the tallest.
That was before Landmark?
It was before Landmark.
Wow.
They were starting to build Landmark, but so that was the tallest at the time, which is great. So I have a great photo, I can send it to you, of me looking out from the view. So I did that, of course saw the City Hall, which was just right there.
How you doing?
And I have a great story. So I was looking for food, and I was like, what am I going to do? Where do I need to go? And I was searching, and I remember I went around a corner, and right there, it's almost as if like there's like lights all around. It was a Jollibee. I was like, perfect. I love Jollibee. I can understand this. So it's a Filipino McDonald's essentially.
With spaghetti.
Yeah, I always get the
fast food
spaghetti.
Luca.
Looks like we have a special guest. Hi.
Hi, Luca.
Hi. Oh, hello.
That's good.
I think it was chicken tenders. It was good.
Yeah.
And then also near my hotel, I think I went next door. I do not know what it was, but it was absolutely delicious. It was some like vegetable dish with rice noodles and had like crispy tofu or something.
Damn.
It was like amazing.
Cool.
And then the next day I had pho finally. I didn't have pho until the next day. But no, actually I landed on the 4th and I flew out on the 5th. So I wasn't there long, just because, I was busy with school. But it was a really great experience. I'm glad I went, and I'm really glad I went to Vietnam. And it was a good time too, because I didn't have to fly far. It was just an hour or two.
Yeah, like an hour.
And I was already used to the heat of Bangkok. So
that's the same.
Yeah, so I wasn't phased. It's like,
did you have a banh mi?
I didn't get banh mi.
Or coffee?
I don't drink coffee. I know, it's sad. But I've had banh mi over here, so of course it doesn't compare. But I mean, I like banh mi. It's good.
This is cool. You answered what I was going to ask you already. That's pretty cool.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. So now so you wanted to specifically hit on Pride Month.
Yeah.
For this episode. So
sure.
I want to ask you, like, what does Pride Month mean to you?
Oh goodness, it means so much. It means independence, freedom, self-expression, and just overall resilience as well. So ultimately, our community has faced extensive backlash and people telling us we can't do that, we can't exist, but the reality is that we do exist, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that identity. It's also about community too. Another part of it too is just like we are literally everywhere. Despite everything, despite evidence people try to prove otherwise, we literally exist in almost every society in some capacity. It's just really how you define it and how you identify. So it's really a unifying force and something to remind us that we exist. We're here. We're it's a cliche, but it really is. Our existence and that it's beautiful that we can all come together. It's about love. As cliche as that is.
And there is support. There's a support system for everybody in the community.
Yeah. So, and there's of course more work to do because we are, there's various backgrounds. There's intersectionality too. Because we also have to remember it's not just about cisgender white gays. It's about a wide variety of genders, wide variety of backgrounds as well. So that's the thing too. Is what we need to understand is that it's about everybody who's in the community.
I think in this episode, you will educate me a lot because being away, being in Vietnam for those years, I don't know what even cisgender means.
Oh, that's fine.
All these basic terms,
I can
I don't know what
explain
it means.
anytime. I can explain the terms. What's neat about Vietnam, there is underlying support. It's just different. But I can't speak on all of it. I know there's like, it's conservative in a different way. But I do see it happening where there's a lot that can happen there. And I see there's a lot of potential in Vietnam. It's similar to China as well. I think ultimately there is hope in both places. It's more that it's just because it seems like more a political entity, but then there's deep history. Queer history is very deep in both countries. I can't speak on it too much because it's not my culture, but if there's whatever additional research, I just encourage people to research history. There's deep history in both nations. So I do believe that China has existed for thousands of years, and I feel that they will come around eventually. It just takes time. So there is hope there. But yeah, here in the United States, there was so much progress that was made, but there's some regression as well, unfortunately, as we've seen in certain states. So kind of a backlash. And part of it is just because it's become so visible and accepted. That's kind of like an underground, like bubbling up. It's very similar to when Obama won, and then we got the backlash from Donald Trump winning. It's very similar in that sense, is that there's all this support and everything, but then those who don't support just try and find strategies. So they're just trying desperately to find somewhat a scapegoat, as it were, because for them it's a rallying cry. It's bringing people together, and it's a dying culture, and one that is desperately trying to grasp onto whatever and project and blame others. Often it's based in lies.
There's a lot of airplanes.
Being near an airport. Dulles Airport. Thank you, Dulles Airport.
Wow.
We'll be right back. No. My preferences with Vienna, I don't have all the answers. I just know, where I come from. But
what does queer mean in this context?
Queer. Okay, so it's definitely reclaimed term. So queerness is just, I wouldn't say effervescent, but just an overall, almost like an umbrella term. So I know with previous generations, there's been a little bit negative connotation because it used to be considered something as bad as. Do you do like censors on this? Are you okay? I mean, because I can say certain words. I just want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, it's important. Yeah. So, queer used to be almost equivalent to saying the word fag or faggot, which still continues to have negative connotation as it should. So that isn't reclaimed, but queer is becoming reclaimed, especially my generation and younger. So it's just a good overall arching umbrella term. It could be a wide variety of genders, wide variety of sexualities. So that way you aren't just limited to gay or straight or bisexual or pansexual or cisgender, trans, non-binary, etc. So queer is just an umbrella term for essentially the whole community in a lot of ways.
Okay. Can I ask you a question about your own life experience?
Yeah. So my history.
Yeah.
Sure. So I guess part of it is, when did you first know? Is that one thing you might have?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So. Of course, I didn't have terminology for it back then, but probably in kindergarten is when, going back, I think about when I probably started to have these kind of feelings. I knew that, my best friend, who was a guy, I really liked him. I thought it was just, friendship, but, looking back, I think it was a crush. So it definitely was a crush back then. And then, throughout elementary school, it's definitely sort of, here and there. It's just always, gravitated towards guys. But then when it was with girls, it was often just, friendships. We got along really well. And then over time, I think maybe later in Texas, definitely when I came here. So when I first moved here, definitely was developing more. And I think by the time we first knew each other, it was really starting to become something. I just remember, this is a funny story. So I was searching certain things online. I'll just leave it at that. And
in high school?
Middle school.
Okay.
And so I think what happened was someone else saw the search. It was AOL, right? So someone else in the family saw the search, and they were like, Ryan, were you searching this? Are you gay? I'm all like, no. So I wouldn't say really denial, but more just I didn't want to accept it. So at the time, I wasn't ready. This was age 14. So I still remember that, and I was no, that's not me. I like girls, yeah. And so. And then throughout high school, it was definitely developing more, so especially as you knew me. And then over time, I think somewhere between sophomore and junior, I think internally I was definitely like, this is me. Just accept it. That's fine. And so junior year, I definitely didn't feel that much. And then senior year is when finally it was like becoming more and more. And I think definitely quarter 3 and 4. So actually, first people I came out to, actually,
I know them?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because you went to high school with them.
Yeah.
So I remember this. So it was at, do you remember Elizabeth Frank? Do you know Elizabeth Frank?
I know
kind
her.
of.
Yeah.
Okay. It was, this first time I told someone else, it was Elizabeth Frank's birthday party. And I remember, I took to the side, it was Mario Mastriano.
Yeah.
And Chris Will. And I was like, I need to talk to both of you. And I was like, Chris Tom Will?
Sounds so familiar.
CTW? Anyway, so I remember I took them both to the side of the room. And I was like so nervous because I was like, never focused. And I'm like, I'm gay. And they're like, we know, dude. I was like, oh, okay. Cool. So it was fine. So that was like the first time I told people. And then I think it kind of trickled over. The third person was Sarah Westfall, if you knew who that was.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, blonde girl. And actually, 4 and 5 was Sarah Hatzel and Caitlin White. Yeah, so they're among the first people. And then from there, just like more and more. And then so college came around, and I still wasn't like fully out.
Or how did it feel to at least tell somebody?
It was scary, but then it felt good to finally not live with a secret.
Yeah, also I wanted to ask you, how did it feel to live all those years without coming out?
Yeah, it was definitely very straining. But thing is, as you know, I was like, I'm such a nerd, so straight A student and everything. So I had school as a distraction. So I feel like school was definitely falling into my academics can be very like distracted.
Okay, yeah.
But definitely was always something missing. So it definitely was stressful, and I think I was just I guess longing is a good way for it, because I felt like as well, felt almost like delayed in development, because it seems like everyone around me, because over time I just like have the first dates, the first relationships, first kisses, first, so it's almost like a feeling of delay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's okay, you're good.
I'll continue after that.
No, good.
Play number 3. Where's that one going? So it's almost felt like a delay. That's the best way to put it. Wouldn't say lonely. That's a bit too dramatic. But definitely delay, because it just felt like everyone else was able to have their milestones in high school, whereas for me it was much later, which I can get into. Which I'll get into. So college. My first year at college, it was hard, I guess, because I was away. But then I eventually met more gay people, because honestly, I really only knew 1 or 2 gay people. Like Victor Trussell was the one, right? In high school, it was really out, which I guess he couldn't help it. But it's interesting over time who else has come out since. But that's their own story. But it's out there. But it's interesting it's come out after. Okay, so I'm going back to it. So college, I went to South Africa, which is actually where I got this shirt.
Cool.
Mozambique.
Nice.
So I was a really gay friend there, and I told him, and it was nice. And so then, sophomore year, second year, as we say at UVA, I finally kissed someone, this guy. And
you were like, what, 20?
I was 20, yeah. So you see delay, right? But I realized as well, that's the beauty of it, is that we are, I'll go into more detail about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was 20 when I had my first kiss. It's 2011, and then it was February, and so then like that weekend, my sister and mother came to pick me up. It was around my sister's birthday, so I should have been more considerate. But I remember I had my kiss. I was like mentally preparing myself, because this is the big one, your family. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, gonna do this, gonna do this, gonna do this. So they picked me up, and we were at a Cheeseburger in Paradise, which is since now Outback Steakhouse in Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
So we sit down to eat for the first time. And I was like beaming. I was like, I have news. I'm like, what? You have a girlfriend? I'm like, nope, I kissed a guy. I'm gay. Waterworks. Absolute like devastation. And then the waiter comes over and is like, what can I get you to order?
Damn.
So I was bad at time. In retrospect, it was horrible. But I mean, I needed to do it. Yeah. So anyway, so tears, whatever. And then it was over and they're all like, you're going to tell your father. So context, my father watches Fox News, and he's extremely conservative.
Is your family religious?
I wouldn't say that. But he is a very conservative person, military guy. So you know, so the drive home for 2 hours is like the longest drive ever, like silence and like. And then my mom at the time, I mean, she's extremely supportive now, by the way. My sister is 4 planes. Okay, so my mom. Okay, so she has come around since, but at the time she was crying. She's like, "You're gonna get AIDS. You're gonna die.
Damn.
They're gonna beat you up. You're gonna everything." I'm just like, oh. Okay, so we make it home. I'm like, Dad, grab your favorite pug and let's go to the basement. So I got Hobie. Rest in peace, love him. Brought him to the basement, and then I told him I'm gay. He's like, oh, I knew. So I went to bed that night thinking my dad was okay and my mom wasn't. Wake up next morning.
Is that what you expected, or was the opposite?
It was the opposite. So I thought my dad would be like angry or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then it's just, you know, cut a tension with a knife. Unfortunately, I learned to respect my dad. Like, he's a runner, so he was running extra and like really stressed, wasn't sleeping much because of this. And you know, I feel bad, but it also isn't my fault. That's his reaction.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So has he fully accepted it? No. But I was never kicked out, and I was never like left destitute or whatever, which is good. I'm very fortunate in that sense. But you know, but every once in a while, yes, like here and there, sort of like asks things, but ultimately he just isn't supportive, and I have learned to forgive and accept him because of it.
That's good.
I'll still like make fun of him, but you know. And then now my mom, you know, she loves, you know, talks to me about all these things. She's like, oh, what about this drag queen? Oh, that and that. Rainbows. And my sister loves painting rainbow stuff, so
Yeah.
they become really supportive.
Cool.
So that was really good. And then from there, it just didn't matter who else it came out to. So over time, it was, you know, it's just easier each time. So I guess, how did you find out? That's my question.
That you were...
Yeah. Or did you know a while, or were you like, I knew this?
I think I...
Not to be putting you in this spot.
No, that's cool.
I'm just curious, because... You know.
Actually, I didn't know if you like boys or girls. I just knew that you like to study.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had no idea.
Yeah, so a lot of people thought I was asexual, and that was like what it was. And I thought I was asexual too.
And asexual means you don't like...
No sexuality. So basically,
okay.
Maybe romantic, so maybe I would like take people on a date, but there wouldn't be any, you know... So
how they say in Vietnam, boom 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 boom.
Yeah. So not interested in boom boom. So you know, but I mean, for a while I thought that's what it was, but no. I mean, I like guys. No, actually, this is interesting, right? So it actually has evolved over time. So like, in shorthand, I say gay, but like for those who I really can understand the nuances, I say queer. Just because I am open to a wider range of genders. I figured out, and it's always evolving, but I figured out that like not femininity, like female, I'm not attracted to like people who are female or femininity, but if someone's like a trans woman, trans man, assigned male at birth, you know, cisgender males, non-binary, so I'm attracted more to that side of it. So I found out it's more masculinity in general I'm attracted to. But that's not me saying, you know, oh, femme queens or femme males, I'm not into. Not at all, because there's still masculinity to that. So it's more masculinity in general.
It's like a vibe, right?
Right. So masculinity is more what I'm attracted to. That's the best way I can explain it.
True.
But if someone's cisgender female and like straight, I'm like, no, I'm good. Great friends, but... Yeah.
True, that's fair.
So what was I going on about? Something. Yeah, so it's just each new person I meet is always like a kind of, it's almost like not a game of chess, but it's always like a decision. It's like, how much should I explain? And it's interesting. There's a few, there's been a few instances where like, I'm very friendly with girls and like, but then they think I'm hitting on them. But to me, I'm just being friendly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how for a while I was like passing as like straight or whatever, but I mean it's happened a few times, which it is what it is. But then afterward they're like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. But it is interesting how like, in my perspective, it's just, you know, they're just friends or whatever. But, but I understand the reaction. I totally understand. I don't fault people for that, but that's just funny.
It's kind of funny because usually if a straight guy is hitting on a girl, I think there's like a vibe that goes with that.
I know.
That shouldn't be there when you...
No, I know, but apparently it's just me being friendly. So I've had a few times where they thought I've been hitting on them or like them. I'm just like, no, I'm so sorry. Please, no. Sorry, anything else. Okay, so college, graduated. So Yeah, so ever since, I've been really involved. I marched in the London Pride Parade. Amazing.
Nice.
So
Cool.
that feeling of having a million people cheer you on, there's nothing that can compare to that. That was amazing. And, I've been to a few other Pride Fest events, and I love RuPaul's Drag Race. So I actually only a few days ago, I keep meeting all these queens. So
Cool.
it's a fun month. Anyway, I've talked a lot.
I was gonna ask you, what advice do you have to someone that is thinking about coming out but hasn't done it yet?
My advice is definitely find someone safe, but also don't be in a rush as well. And also, everyone has their own timeline. So that's the best thing. But if it's safe and and you have a secure place, start out with someone to really trust and then move on from there. So never feel pressured. And there's times too where, there's no need to come out. It's just you exist. So I think that's the thing too, is we need to get to a society where coming out doesn't have to be something. So it really just depends on the context and the background. But do know that there's a community out there willing to embrace you.
Cool. That's good. So now we know nobody's alone then. But sometimes we just feel so lonely, man. Sometimes.
Yeah. No, I know. So I could do more definitions. I think you had questions about definitions. So you asked cisgender previously.
Right. I heard. Is that kind of like, I guess, like straight? Is that what that
Not
is?
quite. It's different. So you have gender and you have sexuality. It's two aspects to it. Cisgender is involved with gender. So cisgender means you're assigned a gender at birth and you still identify with that gender. And I imagine that applies to you. So you grew up. They said you're a guy.
Yeah.
You still identify as a guy, right?
Yeah.
So that's cisgender. Transgender is when you're assigned a gender at birth and then later on your gender switches. So it could be something else. It could be, more often it's male to female or female to male, but it's also, it could be like male and or female and then non-binary or any others. So gender is a spectrum. And also gender is just, there's endless number of genders too.
Like a spectrum of identity?
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
So, although, a simple, like on a very basic level, there's masculine versus feminine. There's just a wide range of genders.
Right.
So there's infinite number, really. Technically, you could have billions of genders. So,
and non-binary is neither man or woman.
Yeah, so not identifying with male or female. So it could just be
Like
technically in between, but not quite. It could just be outside binary too. It's like you reject the binary something.
Like you're just human, basically.
Yeah, that's good way of putting it. Yeah.
I guess we're good.
Yeah, in a way. So it's just sort of rejecting putting people in column A or column B. It could be column C or column X squared, right?
Yeah.
Or column 7. So that's the beauty of it, is that there's that. So sexuality is different. So it's like how your sexual identity. So that's we're talking about like straight, gay, bi, lesbian, asexual, as we mentioned, pansexual, polysexual, demisexual, things like that. So I'm glad to define those. But demisexual is like sometimes you're sex attracted, sometimes you don't feel like it. Pansexual is like you're a person, you're sexy, So bisexual is like more than one gender, you're attracted to more than one gender. So it isn't simply just male or female, it could just be your own gender and another one, which is interesting. That's another conversation. Lesbian, well, it's like female, gay. The simplest is like male, but then else can encompass everybody. What else mentioned? Asexual, which I think we mentioned, is like no sexual feelings at all. Which, if you're familiar with the show BoJack Horseman, that would be oh my gosh, what's the character's name? So the asexual character on BoJack Horseman is Todd, which it's weird I forgot it because that's my own middle name. So there you go. Todd from BoJack Horseman is a great example of asexuality, and they do a really great job with the character.
Sweet.
But BoJack Horseman is a prominent character, is asexual. He's played by Jake Paul. See, I remember the actor.
Jake Paul?
Yeah, Jake Paul plays him. So the show BoJack Horseman features that well. So and there's quite a bit. But I think also I just want to note too, often there's like Western identities, but then there could also be more like indigenous identities too. So like Two-Spirit with the Native Americans here, or Fa'afafine out in Samoa, and then various others too. So the thing is, these sort of identities do exist, but then also just simply putting an LGBT sort of limits it as well, because there's something more integrated into culture. Because if it's already integrated in the culture, it's not like considered separate, it's just almost sometimes sacred. So, and that's the thing too, if you're not indigenous, I'm kind of plugging this too, if you're not from that community or indigenous, you can't really identify with those. And that's something that's very important as well in the discourse, is that there's times where when you have these identities, sometimes they don't identify with the large LGBT community, and that's legitimate in a lot of ways too. So I think that's also want to note, is that it's emerged from like a Western concept of like, religiosity and not prudeness, but prudeness, this puritanical thing. So it's LGBT emerged from puritanical Western thought, whereas for some of these other communities, that wasn't needed, especially those who are really in tune with that as well. So I think that's another thing too. And I'm not telling communities what to do, but from a lot of my friends, it's understanding that there's something going like decolonial about rejecting Christianity that was imposed on them and re-embracing these indigenous, almost like queer identities as well. So there's a lot, and I have so many great friends around the world who've really embraced that, and really honored to know them. So I think that's another thing too, is just understanding there's so much nuance to it, and I still keep saying I can't represent everybody, but I can at least like provide that pathway to explore more.
Which pronouns do you use?
He, him.
He, him. If someone goes as they, is that for non-binary, or does...
Not always. Pronouns, it's interesting, because those are very personal too, but they, them doesn't always mean that they're binary. Often it might be, but it could just be that's just the pronouns someone wants. So it's always important to respect them. And then sometimes it's like he, they too, so sometimes they just sometimes go by he, sometimes like they, it just depends on the context. So it really just depends on the person, but I wouldn't say specifically it could be non-binary. It might be, but just not always.
Cool. Is there anything in particular that you wanted people to be aware of in this episode?
Let's see, awareness in this episode. I think in general, just always keep an open mind and stay curious and be supportive of each other, be there for everyone. You won't always understand everything about another person, and it's okay. And it's also okay not to know, like, represent everything, and it's okay to just defer and say that I don't know, but I'm willing to learn more. And listening as well is very important. So just no matter what community you're in. So, and I am white, so officially on the record, I am white. Just so you know.
If you haven't noticed.
No, just officially.
But could you not identify as white? Is that possible?
That is a great question.
It should be possible, right?
That is a great question, because, oh goodness, get into whiteness, man. That is a very deep question. I don't have the answer right now. I'll say for myself, I embrace identifying as white because I think it's important that whiteness, there's more white people understand it can be a marked category. Not marginalized, but marked, because often we're like set as the default. It's same thing with like straightness is set as default. So I think that that's another good segue too, is like my queerness, I'm grateful for it every day because it makes me question society.
Cool.
And be more like inclusive and just more open-minded. So yeah, whiteness, can someone reject whiteness? I don't have the answer. In the current context, I would say no. If someone is socialized as white, rejecting it is not possible because it's something society puts on you. That being said, whiteness has become something that's like included more and more groups, but it's also important to understand that it's based on exclusion more than anything. So, yeah.
Wasn't it like, years ago when like the Polish and Irish first came to America, were they not included in
Italians,
the white group?
Yeah, so it took a while, Irish, Italians, etc. Because it started out like Anglo-Saxons, right? And then WASPs and white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And then over time, more and more got in, like Germans, I think, got in, and then the Irish, and then, you know, and sometimes they put Middle East as white as well. And what's interesting, increasingly more Latinos have identified as white. And I know.
Really?
Yeah, no, but it is because like back in the original home countries, white, especially if you look at a place like Argentina and everything.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people who identify as white, but you know, because you have ethnicity and you have race. You know, white is a race, but an ethnicity would be Latino. So they can be white and Latino. And so that, again, I'm not going into that. I mean, that's it's
another rabbit hole.
Not my lane. But you know, I do have a lot of friends who are Afro-Latino or Asian Latino, and so their context on seeing, you know, just because Latino representation doesn't always mean you have full Latino representation. So, well, I guess this is another interesting thing too, because white supremacy, anyone can have white supremacy tendencies, because we've seen more and more there's Latinos who've embraced that, right? So we have seen like shootings and things like that. So you don't always have to be white to embrace white supremacy. So that's an important conversation, which again, it's not my place, but
I feel like in Peru, people support white supremacy and don't even know it.
Right.
I feel that's happening.
Well, you know, skin whitening, right? Skin whitening is a lot of these places, especially in Asia too. So
yeah, in Asia a lot, man.
Yeah, so you do say that a lot. So it is an important conversation. So like, there's certain lines I personally cannot cross. However, you know, it's still there. So it's always encouraging each community to understand why this is happening, right? But that's why I go back to, you know, everyone coming together to work together, because it is very possible, and everyone has something to learn from someone else. Because everyone has an identity that, how do I phrase this? You know, with some capacity, most people have an identity that's like part of a group that isn't as marginalized. So I guess there's ways people can be more marginalized and less marginalized. So we all have the capacity to experience that. So tapping into that can help us all come together in a nicer way.
Speaking of identity, what comes to mind is Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass?
Because he was born a slave.
Yeah.
But he didn't identify as a slave.
Interesting. I don't have enough background on that, unfortunately. I can't address that. That's interesting.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And
Are
because
we talk about slavery, I could talk.
We
about
could.
Slavery. We could.
It's like because he didn't identify as a slave, then he was able to like escape that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have enough background on that. I'll have to learn more. Just to be very frank. But slavery, especially locally, here we are in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
We like to think we're a progressive place. But if you look at the history, just off Merrifield, right? There was a KKK rally in the 30s in Merrifield. Under Tyson's Corner was a former plantation. 495, there was a plantation right there. And there's a lot of local plantations that are kind of forgotten. Or decontextualized. There's 3 cases where it's a private home, someone lives in a former plantation. It just blows my mind.
I believe that.
So that's why, again, and just going back to the local NAACP chapters, definitely have a lot more information about this. But during the pandemic, I personally made the effort to go to where all the former plantations were, and it was depressing as a bunch. Because it's just seeing that it's decontextualized. Because of course you have Mount Vernon.
Here in Virginia, okay.
Northern Virginia specifically.
Yeah.
All of Virginia, it's another story. I'm taking ownership of Fairfax County.
Yeah, Northern Virginia. Okay.
Yeah. So Loudoun County, it seems that, well, there's ways that they're much worse. So they have 2 cases. So one former plantation is now a day spa, like a hotel and day spa, like a relaxation. So people go there to relax on top of where there's like literal chattel slavery. Yeah. And then another one is like a clubhouse for a private gated community. Yeah. It's depressing. And also Loudoun County had 3 lynchings. So that's another thing that we just, Fairfax County, by some miracle, didn't, as far as I know. Wow. But Loudoun County had 3. So.
And Virginia has Lynchburg.
Well, that was after the original person, but I think maybe it wasn't.
I think whoever's the guy from Lynchburg, I think his brother was the guy who did lynching.
Oh,
but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
So that's the other team. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you want.
Oh, no, go ahead.
There's more about this too.
Yeah, tell me.
So through this, I learned also about some of the local names and how they're named after plantation. Like Chantilly is named after a plantation.
Really?
Yes. And then
And in Peru, Chantilly is like a cream for donuts.
Oh my.
Yeah, Chantilly cream.
Oh yeah, so it's different, but it's, because the plantation was kind of modeled after French chateaus. So Chantilly.
Shit.
Yeah. So. But no, if you look at a lot of local, and a lot of these like Leesburg, Fairfax, all these places are named after slaveholders. Right?
Robert E. Lee. Right?
Yeah.
Is that Leesburg?
Like George Mason University George Mason slaveholder. So by some miracle, Centreville, thank gosh, is named after all those. But this is the thing. If it was contextualized more, it'd be helpful. So again, I'm never ever going to speak on behalf of the local Black community, but I can at least note that learn the history about the plantations here, what's happened to them, and work towards changing that and contextualizing it too, and understanding that where a lot of these things are happening, like where their current places like malls and airports and everything are built on land where there's chattel slavery.
Massage parlors, everything. Jeez, Dave and Buster's.
So I guess that's why I wanted to also note the local history. Will my Instagram be noted? I can put my Instagram.
Yeah, I can put it there.
Yeah, I have on my Instagram. I sort of saved my stories on when I went to all these.
Yeah.
And how I felt in that moment.
Sweet.
And also, I linked to the NAACP as well. Then also over in Alexandria, I think it's near Mount Vernon. There's also like a free Black community that was established. I think it's called High Blue Valley. Maybe in post. I can find it and I can note it. But it was interesting going. I went over there like this year. There's a free Black community that was established right near Mount Vernon, but now it's being all gentrified and almost disappearing. So yeah, there's so much to the area, so much to be done. Despite it being a progressive place in certain ways, there's other ways that history is not well known. And then the ultimate crime, of course, indigenous displacement. So
that was like the first crime, maybe.
I know.
Jeez. So I've been doing these shout-outs.
Yeah.
Like in our episodes.
Yeah. Who do you want me to?
And for this one, I want to just change one thing, because usually we shout out to our listeners in like we have 7 countries that listen so far.
That's cool.
But for this one, I could what I'm thinking is shout out to the LGBT communities in these countries.
Yeah, sure.
So, what would you say to the LGBT community in the UK?
You know what, the British LGBT community are a very strong, dynamic community, and have done so much, and there's so much progress to be made. And I know there's been some backlash as well, and the Tories are still in power, but there's keep going, and you have a rich history.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What would you say to the people in Canada?
You're a very progressive place. You've done really well for themselves. So the LGBT community in Canada is very strong, dynamic, and keep on that progress. And don't forget Indigenous rights.
Right. All right.
Yeah. So.
What about Mexico?
You know what? You have a pretty cool community. And I know RuPaul's Drag Race is having their most recent Mexico edition this year, so that's an achievement. I think what's really nice is that now that you have the full marriage equality across the whole country. It took a while, but it's great to see that. And I think it's really great to see like a kind of a leader in Latin America on LGBT rights, one of them. So I think that's really great.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about Singapore?
Congratulations on race and decriminalization. I know that took a lot of effort, and I'm really impressed with the Pink Dot movement as well. I actually almost moved to Singapore, but that's another story.
When was that?
2013.
Wow.
But yeah, I think y'all should be very proud of yourselves for all the progress you've made, and congratulations on decriminalization recently.
Cool.
Yeah.
But was it wait, for what?
Gay was decriminalized. Like male MSM. So.
Okay.
Lesbian sex was kind of always it was fine, but like it was based on the British penal codes. So it goes back to the colonial laws and everything. So it was recently rescinded, and so now it's legal because it wasn't technically enforced, but it's still in the books. But now they removed it. So congratulations, Singapore.
Cool, awesome. What about India?
India. You know what? Y'all have done you have really rich history. I'm very proud of that. LGBT history, especially along third gender lines. So keep going. And I know like there's a back and forth, but just keep going. And you have a lot to be done. And congrats on becoming the largest country in the world, population.
Oh, right. Or are they number one right now?
They beat China out.
Wow.
So congratulations on that, India, and keep going. You have some great people.
Cool. What would you say to Vietnam?
Vietnam, you know what? Y'all are doing great too. You can keep going, and I really believe y'all will do some great things, and I believe the government will do some great things as well. They have the capacity. They were starting to do some things that slowed down, but progress is being made, and I believe in Vietnam.
And lastly, the U.S.
America.
America.
My American LGBT population, keep doing what you're doing, stay strong. We're not going to be defeated. We will not be destroyed. We will not be buried. We are here. We exist. The closets are wide open, and we protect those who are still in the closets. But, we will fight to the bitter end for our rights, and we will not go away. And we will outlive the United States if that comes to it. So.
Who are your heroes, Ryan?
My heroes? Oh my goodness. Well, in a way, my mom. I know it's cliche, but she's been through a lot, and I'm very proud of her. But I think also, who's really cool? James Baldwin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually shares birthday with me, so birthday twin.
When's your birthday?
August 2nd.
August 2nd. Okay.
Yeah, I'm summer baby.
Are you a Leo?
Yes, almost a ma'am. Yes, sir.
Nice.
That's why I'm excited. No, James Baldwin, he really did so much, and it's not even ahead of his time. What he brought to this world is so amazing. So I think James Baldwin is a good person to look up to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any final words you want to share with us?
Final words, I think just thank you so much for reaching me on here. I really appreciate this opportunity. It's been great to talk about these things, and it's great to see you. 2009 was 14 years ago.
Yeah, it's 14 years ago.
Yeah, it's good. Almost, not quite half our lives, but almost half our lives.
It's a big chunk.
It's a big chunk, yeah. We're old and stuff. Well, not too old. We're still young.
I still feel young. Yeah, I feel
young too.
Yeah.
So my final words really are: thank you for this opportunity. Love yourself, love others, and don't forget it's a big, big world, and there's so much out there. That's
been a big theme of this year for me. Self-love. I just started learning how to do that just recently.
Yeah.
Like out of necessity. Really.
Well, you have to.
You have to.
To keep going.
It's like I thought that I did already, but actually I didn't.
Life can be so tough, so it's just really be nice to people, and be
and to yourself too.
Yeah, be sympathetic. Just try to find the best in people, but sometimes you won't always find it. That's okay. So then you have to move on as well.
Yeah. Do you want to share your Instagram with everybody?
Yes. So my Instagram is RyRy Global. RYRY Global.
I'll put it right here. Bing. Yes.
Yeah. So, that's mine.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Ryan.
Of course.
Until next time.